Good morning, boys and girls of all ages. I'm going to tell you about 2 days today, 2 special days that come right after Halloween. Now, I'm not going to tell you about Halloween because you already know all about Halloween. And I'm going to tell you why I'm wearing all these flowers, but that's later. So let me tell you about the first day first. The day after Halloween, November 1st, is All Saints' Day. And to us in our church, All Saints' Day means a day that we remember people, loved ones, and friends that are no longer with us. That means that they've gone to live with God in heaven. They're watching out for us, they're watching over us, but they're kind of like our guardian angels now. And I've had those people with me all my life. Some of them didn't really know that well because they were my guardian angels from great-grandparents and grandparents that I never really knew when I was a little girl. But I'm going to tell you about some people that I did know really well that are no longer with me on earth, but they're with God and watching out for me all the time. And that's what we do on All Saints' Day. We remember people, friends and loved ones that are no longer with us. But we want to remember them fondly. Sometimes we light candles. Sometimes we tell stories. Sometimes we put pictures up. We remember them. In my Trinity family, I have 3 people recently that passed away that I know are looking out for us, and I have some really good memories about them. And one thing in my family we always did was try and tell funny stories or fond memories that weren't sad. They kind of made us happy and made us laugh as we remembered those people. I remember John, who always had a hug for everybody, a great big bear hug that kind of swallowed you up because he was so big and so tall. And I loved his hugs. And I remember Eleanor, who always used to tell me, I love your stories, I'm just a big head at heart. And I loved the fact that she liked my stories and she was a big kid. And I remember Mark. And Mark and I used to talk sometimes and joke about students because he was at a college and I was at the schools. And I remember one day I told him, it was right after the first day of school, and I said, the kids are so crazy. They are so sad. Some of them are crying. A lot of them are lost because they don't know where they're going. They don't know where the bathroom is. They don't know where the lunchroom is. And they get so upset, and it's so hard for me to try and track them all down. And Mark, I said, you don't understand that because you're at a college. And Mark laughed and he said, that's freshmen. That's the freshmen in college. They're lost. They don't know where the lunchroom is. They don't know where the bathroom is. They don't know where their classroom is. And I had to laugh, and I thought, it never ends. They're 18 and 19 years old, and it never ends. So I remember them fondly with those stories. And I'm going to tell you about 3 people in my life. This is my mother and father. If you look at my dad, you can tell his Native American heritage. My mom, not so. But I'm going to tell you a funny story about each of them, because when I get together with my children, I try and remember those funny stories so they would always remember funny stories about their great-grandparents. I can remember my dad. One funny story about my dad. He used to fix things. And he was pretty good at fixing things, but he fixed them sometimes too well. And I remember we had a toaster when I was a little girl that didn't pop up very far, and you had to dig down and grab the toast with a plastic fork, not a metal one because that would have given you a shock, but we had kept plastic forks near the toaster so we could dig down and pull the toast up. And my father got annoyed with it. So one day he decided to fix the toaster so it would pop up. Well, he fixed it all right. Every time the toast popped up, we had to run around with a plate trying to catch it where it was going, because it popped right out of the toaster and way up in the air, and we had to catch it before it hit the floor. And my mother, now this is a story that was when she was much older. She was not a person who liked and knew anything about much technology. I remember when I got her an answering machine and I showed her how to put the answer on it. When I called her one day, the message was, "I'm not home, call back later," click. She didn't even have anybody put a message on it. But the funniest thing was, she used to call me about 2 or 3 times a week when I moved to Florida. And it was right after Thanksgiving, and I was typing my Christmas letters, because in my family we're all big on Christmas letters. You send out a letter to all the relatives and tell them what you've been doing all year. And I said, "Mom, I'm right in the middle of typing my Christmas letter on the computer. Can I call you right back?" And she said, "Well, you're going to have to handwrite the letters to your aunts, you know that." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because they don't have a computer." And I had to try and explain to her that I was typing it just like a typewriter, and then I'd run the letters off and they'd actually have a hard copy. They didn't have to have a computer to read my Christmas letter. But she thought they'd have to have a computer, so I'd have to handwrite their letters. So that's funny stories about my mom and dad. And now I'm going to tell you a funny story about my husband. Now this is a picture of him in his police uniform. But before I married him, and we were dating for a long time, it was right about Valentine's Day. And he was known for practical jokes, trust me. But it was Valentine's Day, and he had gone to Blockbuster and rented a really funny comedy movie and brought it over to my house. And he had a package, and the package was about this long and about this thick, and it was about the size that you would put a necklace in from the jewelry store. And I thought, oh wow, he bought jewelry. And I opened the package, and it was Cracker Jacks. And I didn't notice much about the Cracker Jacks, except that I was a little annoyed that what he'd given me was a box of Cracker Jacks. But he said, I don't really like Cracker Jacks because I don't like caramel corn. And he said, "That's all right, while we watch the movie, just open it up and we'll eat the Cracker Jacks." And I said, okay. So I got a bowl and I poured the Cracker Jacks in it. And if you don't know anything about Cracker Jacks have a prize at the bottom. And in this little wrapped up plastic thing was a prize. So he said, "Well, it's Valentine's Day, you can have the prize." So I opened the prize up. And what was in there, I hadn't noticed that he'd already opened the box and resealed it. In the box was my engagement ring. That was my prize. So he hid the engagement ring, and then he asked me to marry him, and of course I did, and we were together for over 40 years. But in that package in that Cracker Jack prize was a nice diamond ring. And that's All Saints Day, remembering loved ones and friends that mean a lot to you, and sometimes telling funny stories so you remember them with love and with laughter and not sadness, because they're with God now. The other day I want to tell you about is the 2nd of November, which is going to be Monday, November 2nd. And I didn't know much about this until I met some people when I was in graduate school from Mexico. And since I was a long way from home, we did at the Halloween party that the college had, the church group I belonged to, had a Halloween party, and they said, "We're going to celebrate on November 2nd. Would you like to come with us?" And I said, "What are we celebrating?" And they said, "El Día de la Muertes," the Day of the Dead. And I said, "We celebrate the day of," "Oh yes." we have a big party and picnics and all kinds of things. And I went with them. And they told me that in Mexico sometimes people even have these picnics in cemeteries. But we celebrated in a park, and they had flowers like this, and they gave them to me to wear, and they had marigolds, real flowers, because that's a flower they celebrate with, and they had picnics and lots of food and pictures of their loved ones, just like my pictures, and they had candles that they lit, and they had lots of paper decorations with punched out designs on them that was hanging from everywhere. And they had little votive candles like this, lots of places. But I'm going to tell you about some of the foods they had. Now, I didn't bring a lot of them in my picnic basket, but I brought some. They had chalupas. You may know, if you go to Taco Bell, you know what a chalupa is. Tamales, which is kind of like a thick, kind of heavy cornbread wrapped up in it's a little spicy, and it's wrapped up in a corn husk. And mole negro, which is, now this has surprised me, because it's a chocolate sauce, usually with chicken. And I thought, chocolate chicken, but there's no sugar in it. There's onions and garlic and chili peppers, so it's a spicy chocolate sauce. It's not sweet at all. It's not like you think of chocolate. It's pretty good. And some of the other things they had, one of them is a champanero, which is a thick hot chocolate. It's almost thick enough to eat with a spoon, but it's a hot chocolate. So you kind of drink it if you can. And sugar candy skeletons. I couldn't get any of those. But I'm going to tell you some of the other things they had. They had pan de muerto. Now, pan de muerto is a bread, a round bread. Mine is a roll. It smells really good. And tortilla soup. On November 2nd, I'm going to make my tortilla soup and my tortilla strips to go with it. And something I had never had before, but I fell in love with. Oh, they had fruit and stuff too like that. This is flan, and it's got a caramel sauce on the bottom. I don't care so much for that, but it's a custard, and it is so smooth and so delicious. I just love flan. I'd never had any, but we've celebrated all day. We told stories about their relatives, we told stories about their friends, looked at the pictures, and it was a big party to celebrate. And it was a really good, fun time. And it wasn't sad at all. And that's what I want you most to remember about All Saints Day and about Dia de la Muerto. You celebrate the lives of people that are no longer with you. You celebrate the fact that you miss them. You celebrate how glad you are that they were with you, that you got to have them, and how glad you are that now they're with God. And that's an important thing. It's not a sad day. All Saints Day is not a sad day. So please remember that. Celebrate the lives of people that you've lost and be happy that you had them. And that's all. Thank you.